All right, thank you. So more than moderation, really come up, ask questions. You know all the program leads, so again, if for anyone who has forgotten already, Ron for Cloud Communities, Melissa for Women Tech Makers, we have Alina for GDE, and Jen for GDG. I'm here as well for North America specific questions. And so really, if there's something, well, we did this in North America, why not? If you haven't already asked in the beginning, you can talk about that as well. So we're really keeping this open and unstructured on purpose, so that way it is easy for anyone and everyone to ask the questions they need. So literally, go at it. There we go. There we go. Perfect.
Changing from GDG Cloud to Google Cloud Developer Community, is that still a thing?
No.
Okay. So what are we changing to? Is it?
You're right. GDG Cloud.
Okay.
We're going to GDG Cloud.
And is it still going to have the cloud logo, or is it we're going to this?
We're going with this.
Okay. At least we know now.
Yes. Thank you.
That was easy. Great.
All right. Yes.
Hi, guys. Just a quick question about the startup launchpad. Is that under Google Developer? Is that part of this or something separate? And the follow-up, will that be how this works, especially in Canada?
Great question. I think I'm well suited for that one as well. Looking at Launchpad more so in Canada. So Launchpad is part of the dev ecosystem umbrella. It is a program that we kind of have a global program. It currently doesn't exist in full force in North America. Right now we have something in San Francisco, but it's also looking at global startups that come to San Francisco. We are in the process of investigating bringing into North America, Canada, potentially to start, and then US as well. That is a work in progress. Great.
I think many people would agree that a lot of people don't know what GDG stands for, what it means. And we recently had to sign the terms and conditions where it said you can't say Google Developers Group and the title of your group, and you had to take it out of certain places on the meetup, like to distance us from Google maybe, but it makes it harder for people to know what GDG means.
Yeah, so I can clarify that. So when you're talking about your community, like in plain text or as you like speak about it, you're always welcome to call it Google Developer Groups. The official name, we ask that you don't use the full spelling. They're just very sensitive to like the use of the Google term in like official names. So GDG, like published when you like put your logos, all that kind of stuff, use GDG. But of course, as you're explaining to people, it's totally fine. You can definitely say we're a Google Developer Group. We talk about these kind of technologies, that kind of stuff. You can always like even in email text, like plain text, totally fine. They just don't want it as an official brand name.
Hi everyone. First of all, I just really want to say thank you so much. This is just an incredible event. This is my third summit, and it keeps getting better every year. I know there's a lot of hard work that goes into this. I just want to say thank you. So that's me.
Thank you. Thank you.
So my questions are, I have a couple of questions that are, I think, related. So I run the GDG Cambridge group. We're in Massachusetts, and we're really lucky to actually have a Google office like in our neighborhood. So I'd love to know if there are kind of some plans in place for the chapters that are lucky enough to kind of have, like, be nearby a Google office. If there's, a kind of a better community relations program, that you guys were thinking about. I'm really good at networking. I'm good at like asking people for things. I have a good relationship with that office, but it would be great to kind of have a little bit more formality, knowing, hey, there's a photos team, there's a YouTube team, there's teams that we can actually tap into to do talks. So that's one. Related question to that is really around people using Google technologies within the areas that we're in. Like, so if you have a big customer that's doing a lot with GCP, there are engineers that can give great talks for our communities, right? And so, is there kind of something that we can do to kind of connect the people that that are doing cool things with Google Tech with GDG groups? Both as a source of speakers, but also just as attendees, right? So, thank you.
So from a local perspective, we can definitely do this. We can definitely make some of the connections of if you have a community and it is close to a Google office, hey, this is what's happening at this Google office. just an FYI, here are the teams, and usually all the product teams, they're always really happy to know that there's community in their area that wants to talk to them, so they'll be happy to share their contact information. So that's an action item we can take to make a more formalized introduction to the Google office and the key people there. The second part, I don't know if you want to take that.
Yeah, so just about knowing which teams are in which office, or, sorry, the first.
There's people doing really cool things with GCP, for example, that are in this area. Like Twitter, Twitter has a huge office in Boston. Like, I'd love to get some engineers to talk about their migration to GCP, for our community, right? That's just an example of that.
Yeah. So we can definitely kind of work to identify those possible connection points. I think in terms of, I think your first question was, if we can have better relationships, like local chapters with individual offices. I think we can definitely see what's available in those offices. I think the challenge is that even if a Google office is present somewhere, they don't always, so our team is limited in the number of offices where we operate, right, where the dev ecosystem has representatives. So we, I think in Cambridge we have a couple allies or a couple developer advocates that we always call on, but as a developer ecosystem team, we don't have anyone that's actually there where their full-time job is community relationships. So we kind of try to find those advocates where we can, so we can definitely kind of be transparent and let you know. But it's not always guaranteed that just because there's a data center or an office in that city that there's really someone that could host events or come speak that frequently. But we'll definitely try our best to identify and find some connection points for you.
And to add to that, let's not limit ourselves. So the question about Twitter, someone on Twitter that knows GCP right away, by all means, there's nothing on our side that's stopping anyone from making that connection. And if you have that connection, or if you know someone and you want to ask them to come in, that is by all means at your discretion.
Along those lines too, with the GCP particularly, this, Naveem alluded to the work that Ahmed is doing with enterprise communities, and one of the things that we're trying to figure out is exactly how do we do a better job of bridging those connections, both making those enterprises aware of the community that's out there for resources and support and even potential recruitment, but on the flip side also, are there things that the community can bring into that enterprise also, and that is kind of a bit of a work in progress.
Yeah, I'm happy to I would love to have an open thread with you all as you're thinking those things through. I think being in the Cambridge-Boston area, I have a uniquely interesting perspective on that. So open channel. And thank you all for your time.
Thanks.
Thanks. You.
Yeah. So my question is about the resources. The new website is great, but in our chapter, we have organizer plus 2 co-organizers, and we are adding more people, and they are just event organizers. They don't get access to any of the resource, and I don't even have the ability to download the resources. And I don't want I just don't want to add everyone to the co-organizers community because they are not 100% committed. They are just going to help us for 6 months, and then they're just going to go away. So what is the best way to provide access? It's just the organizer's guide. Even that's not available to everyone. So I'm kind of taking screenshots and sharing it with them.
Yeah, so the way we're kind of trying to get around that, so I think the short answer first is if you have someone that needs access to those things, we do recommend that they should be a co-organizer, right? So I understand that there's different levels in Meetup, but for our purposes, in terms of who we consider an official GDG organizer, it's the primary organizer and co-organizers. So I know there's folks, and the reason why Meetup has these different levels is for slightly different use cases, but they have an event organizer and assistant organizer statuses that you can use. So if there's just a venue host or something like that, you'd probably put them in as an event organizer. They don't need access to the inner workings of your chapter. They just need to know who the attendees are for that particular event. So we do kind of reserve the co-organizer status for anyone that you deem as you want them to have access to things. I think we can talk about the case-by-case situation of why someone would only be there for need access for 6 months and then not. It's totally fine if you want to elevate them to co-organizer for 6 months and then remove them later. And then things like the DevFest organizer guide, we are going to make that, it's a public website, so that will be accessible to everyone. But I know there are certain elements of content where we want to make sure it's seen by the GDG official organizers first before we kind of publish it worldwide.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I think I'm going to just add to the previous question about connecting with the industry and more speakers. I know, I remember seeing, and I know there is a form out there for Firebase speakers, and you can request time and availability of Firebase speakers. So is there any plan to do similar things for other GDG speakers who can be made available, and we can request their availability through an official request form, which can be put on the website? That's one. The second part of that is there any way to, I know there could be some confidentiality issues with putting the companies who are moving to GCP in our region, so that we can approach to them and see, try and build relations there, knowing that, okay, yes, you are moving to GCP, and here is a community, and we can both benefit from each other. And instead of us having to go and talk to the companies and try to figure out whether they are moving, and oh no, then okay, thank you for your time, come back later. That's one question. I got just two more.
So can we
Yeah, why don't
answer?
we
Let's
take
just jump in. So
Yeah,
I'll-
the last one is about stickers and swags. It's like, especially with the new logo, I spoke to you, Naveem, but also main products like GCP has ML, IoT, and other Android and web development on other Google developers programs. So if we could get some, just stickers, no other swag. It's like really big in communities. Oh, if you just have stickers out there, they'll just grab a bunch of them, and that's a good, I think, at least in my mind, a good selling
so I can take
motivation.
the first part of the question, and then I think Ron,
Yeah, I
maybe
can
you'll
take the middle one.
The middle one, okay. So, and then maybe you do the third one. So for the first portion, in terms of like by product area, like who's available to speak and that kind of stuff. So as we kind of provide these like different content packs and event opportunities, we definitely are working with the product teams to see. We always ask them like what kind of funding is available. So we are having conversations about what kind of speakers they can send. Of course, the answers are very different by product area and by region. So like when I'm making the ask, it's a global ask, but of course they don't have people available in different countries. So North America should be fairly simpler. So we can definitely make sure to consolidate those asks. And then using DevFest as a particular example. That's an opportunity where, if you are hosting within the time frame that we're suggesting, we are doing those concerted asks kind of on your behalf, right? So as you create a DevFest, as we see it come through on your meetup page, these are things that we can populate and share with the product teams and say, hey, we see that there's, 40 DevFest events already scheduled for North America. Like, can you provide speakers to run the circuit? And so that's kind of how, by consolidating some of the efforts, we are able to make those asks kind of at an aggregate level for the product teams.
On the companies using GCP in your region question, I think you did hit on one thing about do they really want other people to know, and at what level of adoption are they? So, at the very base level, there's our customer list that's on the cloud website, the cloud.google.com. There's some case studies out there that are obviously people who have a good relationship with us, who would be more than open to someone reaching out to them. But then there is that challenge of like, okay, well, who do I actually reach out to? And that again comes back to like the answer to the earlier question about working with Amit on our enterprise efforts to figure out like how do we bridge those connections bidirectionally. And it's going to take a little while, right? We're still pretty early on in this process, and we're going to pilot with a handful of companies in the coming quarter and hope to grow that as time goes on. So we can definitely be in touch about that as time progresses.
It's more like once the GDG Enterprise program grows.
Yeah, and like we'll try to we'll try to continue to make sure that the list of like known companies is out there. The other thing that we'll see is
it's like, okay, in your region, these are the companies who are, who you can approach. Yeah. So.
And one of the other things that we're doing actually at Next in a week and a half is trying to do, for the folks who are there, to do a booth crawl with the sponsors, right? These are people who are from all over the region, so at least we can start building those connections from people who are identifying as, hey, this is something that I do want to sponsor, and start building those bridges.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So I have a question on a topic that's near and dear to probably everyone here, swag. So I run a couple meetups. One of them is Trello Meetup, and so they actually provide swag for a certain percentage, up to a certain percentage of attendees. And I understand that that's something that you don't do, and there's a design to that. And it's on us to actually, purchase swag if we want to use that out of a budget. The thing is that with a lot of the swag is that there's a lot of quantity discounts that you can get of buying in bulk. And so if it's something for an event that is, like a DevFest event, there would be a lot of benefit for all the GDG chapters to actually pool resources to get swag, to actually get better deals so we can actually allocate money to other things.
That's a great point, so thank you for that. We have looked into this a little bit about if we were going to get swag and just by having a larger order, it actually ends up being cheaper, so then we can distribute it across the board. We are still looking at that in terms of options, especially with today with all the announcements of the logo change. More important because if some people have been sitting on swag and they realize, oh wait, these are the old logos. So we're going to look at that, especially for this year, but it's something we're always looking at. We still urge the community to look into it, try to cover swag on your own for the reason that we mentioned, that it's something that with the support that we're giving, then try to use it out of that. But your point is 100% bang on. That yes, there is a volume discount, and so if that's something that we can alleviate, we are looking into that and trying to figure out a way that whether it's bringing all the GDGs that are interested in doing this and kind of have it as one order and they all pitch into the pool versus we just make it easy and look at it and say, okay, as part of the benefit, we're going to take care of some of this. It's yet to be determined, but your point's noted, and again, a very valid one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
To kind of build on something I think we mentioned, I think two presentations ago here. I was kind of thinking, Captain Picard didn't mention necessarily that clear communication was really key. He talked about the proper language, but one thing we did find with our meetups is building that pipeline and communicating like months into advance for our meetup attendees what's going to happen is really important. But it's kind of a challenge because we don't find out what we might get sponsored for or what events might be available and the sponsorship through GDG. Case in point, a lot of us are going to next weekend, and we got the email about the extended event a week ago. And so, we put our stuff up 2 months ago before the event, but we're just speculating. We're hoping we get sponsored. And you mentioned, you're showing more calendars, more longer views for us here. But is there going to be like an actual calendar or some way we could even get like tentative dates? Like, okay, maybe it'll change, or maybe this event won't happen. But it'd be great to have some more clarity. Or dare I say even like an SLA to say like, 2 months out we'll know.
So taking a page out of Ron's book? Yes. Yeah, so absolutely. This was, we actually have a calendar and we actually have dates listed on it. From a presentation perspective, it was easier to put it by quarter and just kind of list them out. I want to definitely stress on the fact that sometimes they are tentative. And just when it comes to dates like with Cloud and with I/O, sure, they're known, but even those aren't firmed up till around the time you hear about it. And then when we talk about Cloud, we'd love to give the date for, let's say, Cloud Next Extended, but we're not locked in on the funding available to that right away. And so even, I think the point for us to take, though, is whatever we do know and whatever we can share, we should share as soon as possible. In certain cases where, let's say, the North America team, for example, has a little bit more control, I/O Extended is a good example. We know the funding we can do for that. We know when that's happening. Let's share that right away. And so taking that, that's definitely been a goal of ours for 2019. And this is where the first step was just let's figure out all those dates. And now that we know that, we're just going to share it back to everyone.
And on the next extended point, I was there was a lot of sausage making in the background that I was like trying to protect people from and doing this balance of like when do we get the organizer guide out, knowing that there was this other stuff we were trying to get into it. And I feel like maybe I got the balance not quite right on that. So like, that's on me, and I apologize. But yeah, we want to get that stuff out sooner.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Hi. I have a question about the GDE program.
Yes.
So in addition to being a GDG organizer, I'm also a GDE for Cloud. And even we heard earlier today, and I heard earlier, when I joined the program, that the Cloud, the GDEs in general have access to like Google PMs and such, and maybe they get on alphas and those sorts of things. As a GDE, I have not experienced that, and I'm not sure as a GDE, how I would go get FaceTime with PMs and so forth. As a very large Google Cloud customer, I have access to all of these people already, so it's not like a personal problem I'm trying to solve. But in the future, if I was still a GDE and not at the Broad, I would want to know how to maintain all those relationships, and I'm curious how all the other GDEs are getting access. And just one last thing that I've talked to several PMs because I have relationships with them, and they are not aware of the GDE program, and they don't know. Like, I'm like, no, GDEs get on your alphas and they get FaceTime with you, and they're like, I've never heard of the GDE program, and I've never had FaceTime with a GDE. So I wondered if you could clear some of that up.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the first part, if these are things that you have personally not experience with, I think it just died. Oh, okay, I'm good. So if that's the case, shoot me an email, and I'll help like personally facilitate that. That should not be the case. And then for the second part, amplification and marketing and recognition for internal product area groups. This is actually an area that's a large goal for us for 2019. We just basically dedicated a resource and time to marketing, awareness, outreach. So from that perspective, it's something that we as a program are hoping to improve. So basically stay tuned and we'll give you updates for that in the year.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
From the cloud-specific side too, like, are you on the Cloud GDE mailing list? Because we've been doing the monthly hangouts, and I've been like rattling the bushes and just sent out a survey to all Cloud GDEs asking people like, hey, what do you want to hear about so we can chase the right PMs?
Yeah, again,
So
it's
that we
like
can-
I am not
No, I know
lacking the access or the information,
Yeah.
but I am lacking the visibility into how everyone else is getting that.
Right.
Got it.
Okay, thanks.
So while we're on that, actually, I'm curious, are there other GDEs that are here right now that have experienced something similar? Where they have not
Yeah.
had the access that's been thought of? So it's only Lucas?
Maybe he's the only GDE here.
No, I think we have, yeah.
I'm an assistant GDE, and just in that silo, we have good access, and there's good communication, we have regular meetings, et cetera, but that's only for assistants. Right. Every GDE technology is different.
Thank you for sharing that.
And I'll
That's
say
good
that
feedback.
was part of the program that never affected and did not change access one way or the other, so.
So you had access?
Yeah, alphas, all that kind of stuff, that was already there beforehand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
Instead of a whole question, I just have two small ones. One is regarding GDE, and that is that when you go to fill out the form, there are a lot of pigeonhole boxes for you spoke at this event, how many people did you reach, what was the date. You wrote this article, same information, et cetera, et cetera. There's nothing there for ongoing efforts that I can find, and that's like I run a weekly office hours for Flutter that's open worldwide remotely. We've been doing this for quite a while. The Flutter team's aware of it. They send us people once a week, once every 2 weeks. How do I put that on the form? How do I put the fact that I helped start Flutter Community Medium on the form, and we're doing 20 hours of editing a week and things like that? And from the DevFest side, from my other question, pretty much.
Let's get an answer to the first one
Okay,
first,
go
and then
ahead.
have a second one. Go for it.
This is perfect timing. The app is actually going through a new iteration right now, adding new features. So that's great feedback and feedback we've heard in the past. So basically, stay tuned. It's something we'll implement.
Appreciate it. And a short one, it's really more of a comment, not really a complaint, but I think it's something we all need to work around. With DevFest being primarily in September, I go around speaking on Flutter. Shocking, right? But I hit 3 DevFests last year, and it's going to be even more popular. I'm sorry, I can't take Thursday off to travel and Friday to speak every single weekend in September to go speak at all these places. So either we need to like try to shuffle a little more towards Saturdays or figure something out, but I can't work 3 days a week for an entire month. And I'm sure I'm not the only one, I'm sorry.
No, you're right. And thank you for sharing that. Go ahead.
Hey guys, my name is Jun. I'm from GDG Winnipeg. Just a quick question, actually 2 quick questions. So my company is moving to GCP partially, and I was just wondering, is GDG Enterprise a resource that we can look into getting help from?
Potentially.
Okay,
Yeah, we should talk more.
Okay, that's about the length of the response I was expecting. Now for a longer one, And my last question, so how is that relationship like? I think someone mentioned that you guys will be pushing like email content and like depends on how much the company wants, you can push more and more content that we read. But is there any other resources like somebody will come to my company or something like that?
So we are like the pilot that we're working on right now that Ahmed is primarily driving here in North America is trying to figure out how do we partner well with the existing Google teams that are in the account, right? We don't want to come in and like run roughshod over something that a sales team is doing or a customer engineering team is doing. We want to partner with them and figure out what are the right solutions that are actually going to help the company succeed on GCP, right? We see some challenges in the marketplace where, we'll go in and somebody will sign on a form and they say, yes, we want to adopt GCP, and then like that adoption doesn't take place as quickly or as smoothly as we'd like to see. And we feel like bringing the tools and the resources that we have from a community side can help overcome some of those barriers. So exactly what those things are going to be and how they're going to get implemented definitely are going to vary from account to account. And it might be something where we do a Google Day and maybe we have a developer advocate come in and talk about something that is relevant to your company because you're focused on retail or oil and gas or healthcare or whatever, right? And then maybe there's an internal study jam, and maybe there's a cloud derby event that goes on, and then maybe we figure out like who are the internal advocates that can carry these internal like lunch and learn things forward throughout the course of the year. But the exact sort of menu of services and what is going to resonate for any given community, that's the stuff that we're working on building out right now.
Thank you. Actually, one last question. Something that just came to my mind is that for GDG, we're mostly here for the community of developers, so that's like for a good cause, and everybody volunteers their time to do that. But for GDG Enterprise, we're helping companies, and companies, they're not exactly like, they make money off of the GCP and whatnot, right? So it seems like for a different cause. So I was just wondering if there's any catch or anything the company needs to contribute to take advantage of GDG Enterprise.
So I think that's a fair point, and it's not so much that we're trying to create like a specific GDG chapter inside Company X. It's we're trying to figure out how can we bring the tools that we all know help developers succeed into places where developers are.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so to echo what Uttam just said, for those of you who didn't hear it because he didn't have a mic, basically there is no expectation that you go and start a GDG inside Company X, right? These are going to be things that somebody who is already employee inside Company X is going to leverage some tools and build their own internal community.
Hey everybody, I'm Jared from GDG DC, Washington DC. So this is more around the GDE program, and something occurred to me while I was listening to the presentation. GDE, to me anyway, has a lot to do with getting really, really good at the stack, the vertical that you're working on, and then going out and promoting that, right? And so as we were looking at all the different segments, we were looking at, a UX GDE, a product strategy GDE, which, by the way, I just hired one last week. Thanks. I think maybe I missed it, but the people in this room actually are some of the biggest advocates for Google technologies. I didn't notice a community builder GDE.
That's a good point. I guess my response to that would be when you're thinking about like an industry function, whether it's aligned to a vertical or whether it's aligned to a specific product, it's more thinking of it as like traditional job roles that you would have about a function that you would have expertise in. And I think like from my perspective and the perspective of the team, this point has been brought up in the past.
Oh, good.
Community organization is just not seen as basically like a traditional role function. That doesn't mean that like eventually it might not evolve into that. I think a lot more companies and organizations are seeing the value of event management and coordination and community organization and just like evangelism in general. But I think my answer to that is basically that. It's just hasn't been seen as a traditional function. hasn't had enough of a following. And then also because a lot of the other programs are basically focused on evolving community organization as a role, as a passion. It's encompassed by those programs that we have within our ecosystem. So I see coverage that way. Did you want to touch on it?
Yeah, I will say that as the Women Tech Makers program specifically has looked and is starting to look into, can we assign a Women Tech Maker kind of badge or something to the GDE program, someone who's a specialist in diversity and inclusion work. So that's something we're looking into. We're not sure if we're ready to do that yet, but yes, along those lines, giving people more credentials around.
Sure, and I think it bears conversation, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of people in this room that go from like no members in their meetup group to literally thousands, and they also, of course, there's a lot of work to put on a conference, right? Some of us even put on multiple per year, and so I think it would also be as you try to scale, especially one of the things that Naveem mentioned was we went from, I think it was 70 GDEs or GDGs in North America to 103. That's a 47% growth, which is great. But this would also help incentivize others to get really, really good at this.
Yeah, to get the recognition formally.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good feedback. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Dave Koziel from GDG Ann Arbor, and I have, I don't know if this is just a comment, and hopefully you can find a way to help with this or something. So in Ann Arbor, we had something interesting happen. Our Girl Develop It chapter completely disbanded. Which initially sounds really, really bad, but something even better happened, and they formed a new organization called Tech Inclusive. And Tech Inclusive is about all of the underrepresented minorities that we don't have enough of in Ann Arbor. And what I would love for is Google to go back and think about how you might be able to help support this type of initiative, this type of event. I've got a person who is kind of my tech inclusive representative, but he doesn't fit the WTM role quite. I know in the past some men have been nominated for that. I don't know if I should put him up. He is very involved in Google things, but I'd love to see a way where there's some support for that is just somehow, I don't know the best way, but I'd love to see a better way.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yes, we do have men who are Women Tech Maker ambassadors and encourage them to apply if they are doing diversity and inclusion work and are also a community organizer as well. So definitely recommend him. Okay. And also working in this expansion into including broader developer communities who could apply, not just GDGs. Right. That would kind of be our target audience, the person who just started the tech inclusion chapter. In
the past, I didn't have a way to include her because she's a Microsoft technology person, and she didn't seem like a great fit to bring into our GDG. So I've got this, minority who's part of our volunteer committee, and I've been working with them trying to groom him into an organizer. And now I've actually got two possible paths, it sounds like. And
I would refer them, talk to Kubra, and we could send them the application, and so they could learn more about the program.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, we can easily take two if you're thinking about picking one. We'll have both.
Yeah, I don't want to have to pick two. I'd rather have. Awesome.
Hey,
yes.
Mark from Denver. I'm real excited to see that there's regional time tomorrow, so each of the regional groups are hanging out. I have a question about that for cloud groups. So I'm a 6-year GDG organizer, have that all figured out. I'm a 6-month GDG Cloud organizer, have no idea what I'm doing. It'd be awesome if there was like a meetup of the smaller group of GDG Cloud people some point in the next couple days, or maybe that's part of that intro summit thing that's coming up. I don't know if you're going to measure by which group, et cetera. Also wondering what's going on with dinner tonight. Are we on our own? Thank you.
All right, so there are 3 questions.
Right.
Let me start with the dinner one, maybe. I mentioned this yesterday, and I probably didn't mention it today. We intentionally tried to keep evenings open. We figured it's Miami, so everyone could have different plans or do different things. There's a lot of things happening in the city, so we didn't want to lock everyone down into something specific, so we kept it open. That's why we said after this is done, yes, you're on your own, but a lot of people are making plans and let's go here. I heard the talk about renting a yacht, which was kind of cool. Yeah, I heard that. That was really cool. So if you want to jump in on that, he's the guy to talk to. Now, the other piece, it's actually really interesting, and I'll be honest, we didn't think about that. Of as part of the regional breakouts to have a regional or a breakout specific to newly formed GDG Cloud chapters. We can look at that and try to see if we can scramble something together. I would say that the priority right now would be to be part of the region and make sure all the stuff's sorted out within the region, whether you're a cloud chapter or not cloud chapter. It's really important to know and have a feel of what's going on in the region. If we can carve out some time at some point after that and say have something separate for that, we'll try it. This will be on the fly, so we'll see if we can make it happen. The other piece on the GDG Academy. So yes, for that, we will be looking at, so if there was a GDG Cloud chapter that you recently started 6 months ago, we will be considering that to be part of the Academy. And to be clear, because I had this question come a lot of times, for the Academy, I know I said 6 months. For our very first one, we're probably going to go back to all chapters that came up after our last GDG Summit. Because yeah, if you were 8 or 9 months ago, you're still only have this summit as your first summit experience. And so therefore, we would be going back a little further. And then now that we've caught up, moving forward, it will be every 6 months to catch the last 6 months. So hopefully that answers everything.
And from a cloud-specific community challenge or whatever, like I'd be interested in hearing more. B, one of the things that I've been thinking about from like the cloud program perspective, right, is the notion of identifying communities not just by how they've chosen to brand themselves, but by the activities that you all are doing in your community itself. So to that point, coming back to Naveem's thing about like focusing on region, like all of the mountain region folks who have done cloud content ought to be able to help figure out like what's going on and what's working and what's not. But yeah, I'm super happy to support if we want to do a cloud specific breakout.
Right, that would be incredible. Are there any other mountain region cloud groups, or am I the only one? I think I'm the only one. Oh, there is one. Salt Lake. Okay. All right. I'll come
There's
find
a bunch
you.
over here hiding behind the pillars.
Thank you, guys.
Excellent. Just a quick thing. We're happy to have, if you have multiple questions, by all means, just for our sanity, maybe if you ask one question at a time so we can answer it and not have to remember what the first one or second or third one was, that'd be great. Yes.
All right. So I've got 12 questions. No. I'm Abraham Williams from Madison, Wisconsin. So we've seen a number of fairly large changes announced today. And so the developer ecosystem teams are obviously doing a lot of stuff, but you don't have bandwidth for everything. So I'd like to hear something that's on your personal bucket lists that you would love to see changed or modified in the community ecosystems in general.
Great question. We'll start from that side.
So I kind of touched on it actually, which is this identifying cloud chapters by activity. So this is something that I've been trying to push for over the past several months internally across our ecosystem team, is looking at the activities that all of you are doing and saying, hey, if you've done a cloud study jam or you've held a talk about Kubernetes or BigQuery in the past 4 months, maybe we should find a way to brand you as a place that people can go for cloud content and surface that externally to the world. So it's not just pins on a map because you're GDG Cloud.
So many things. I'd probably say the speaker thing. I mean, a lot of product teams approach us and they're like, how do I connect to the community? We want to connect to the women tech makers community. And it's a lot, just like pairing. So on our part, having to pair speakers with groups. So creating a more efficient system for that is something that I would like to improve and work on.
Yeah, I think mine is similar to Melissa's. Basically, utilizing the collaboration and the common passions that we all have across our programs to unite behind these goals. So whether it's bringing a speaker to an event or just in general reaching a specific goal for a community, utilizing GDEs, utilizing women tech makers, I guess in summary, just collaboration across programs.
So for me, one of the biggest things that I'm thinking about and hopefully starting to make some baby steps towards is knowing more about other developer communities. So like leaders like yourselves that are doing other developer community work outside of the GDG brand, and how do we connect them all to this ecosystem, right? There's a lot of valuable things that you guys are doing, that they're doing. How do we kind of cross-pollinate? How do we bring expertise, speakers between those different groups? I don't think we should be bounded by our brand names.
That's great. For me, training. A lot of feedback that we receive is about is there more training opportunity as a GDG organizer, as a GDE, as a WTM ambassador, as any of our programs, as you're part of it, as you are all community leaders, what can we do to provide more training? So we talk about, and this is the first step to that is the GDG Academy thing, wow. GDG Academy program, to really start that. Let's start at the foundation and the fundamentals of kind of bringing them up to like at the same level as the rest of the GDG organizers. But beyond that, whether it's public speaking or whether it's, we were talking about community organization as a whole, how to not have to ask the question of, how do I get sponsorship from other company besides Google? Actually have that material readily available. Here are all the tips and tricks. And creating those cheat sheets. So for me, it's really training for the overall community in North America. Great question, thank you. Go ahead.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for the panel, and so far it's been a great little summit here. So I'm Joel from GDG Chicago, but the question is actually from Dan. So he's it's actually in regards to the topic of GDE. So earlier in the slides, we've noticed a few GDE topics that are on the list. And for the past few years, there's a topic in general and specific called the marketing. And it's actually not on the GDE site at all. There's no experts in it. There's no way to apply for it. So what's the actual story? It sounds like it was once referred to as marketing and analytics, then it became marketing. How do you all go about applying for that now?
That's a good question. I'm going to follow up on it
Okay.
so that I give you the proper process.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that was the main thing because he's been trying to look for information. So
No, thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Roman from GDG Lawrence, Massachusetts, not Kansas. Where's my, Massachusetts people up in the house? That's right. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, great. So I have two questions. They are related to the events, the GDG events. So one thing I did not notice, I saw the schedule, and I saw the Cloud Study Jam, and I saw some of the other events. I did not see anything around the Flutter Study Jams, and I mention it because in my community and the group that I serve, there's a lot of momentum around Flutter and all that. So I didn't see anything around the Flutter specific. So maybe is it being absorbed by all the other events? I saw something saying like Android content coming soon or something like that. And then the second question is, how many, as GDG organizers, how many Google I/O extended events can we host? I think I may have gotten my hand slapped because I set up 3 in the same month, in 2 week spans. I totally understand that maybe you only support 1. But the reason why is because I wanted to create like the Google I/O extended event focused on Flutter development and cloud, and I kind of want to also like interject a little bit of the Flutter Study Jam in those. That's why I created 3 separated, in 2 weeks spans. So I was wondering whether I was doing something wrong in there. I'm not trying to scam Google. I'm just saying, I wanted to get some momentum behind the Flutter, stuff, and also I want to become, in the future maybe a GDE in Flutter. But yeah, I just wanted to open it up to the questions. Maybe I'm doing something wrong or...
So yeah, I'll answer the question. So we don't have a Flutter Study Jam planned, but we're always in talks with all of the different product area teams. So we are talking to Flutter about content available. So hopefully that we'll have something available. I don't know if it'll be a study jam per se, but
Okay, that's fine.
we're hoping to have some sort of content. So look for that, but nothing's like firm just yet.
I have a meeting with Neeli on Monday.
There you go.
And as for multiple I/O extended events, same answer as for DevFest. You can have multiple DevFests. You can have multiple I/O events. Just let us know. And I believe you did let us know, and we were fine with it. But yeah, I'd want to talk a little bit more if you did get your wrist slapped for some reason.
No, that's slapped. I'm just figured.
Yeah. So, but absolutely for anyone, like when we're doing that, again, it's about the community. So if there's a need, sometimes people do multiple purely for, we want to do one in this location and one, 45 minutes out because it's really hard for people to travel. And so it's best for the community. We are very supportive of that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Mel.
Is the mic on? Hello? Oh, okay, cool. All right, so a couple questions for me. The first thing is, so we have 100 and, I don't know, how many chapters I guess are represented here, and what's the gap between the number of chapters represented and the women tech maker leads? And I'm curious if we can figure out like what we can collectively as a group do to close that gap, because it's just really important to have that person and that representation like universally throughout GDG communities, because it's just part of the, it's like having a car with 3 wheels, And so what can we do to fix that problem as a group today and make some commitments?
Yeah, that's a question. That's a really good question, and a question we've been trying to solve for a while. And I think doing what you're doing tomorrow, giving a talk about how to build inclusive cultures and just spreading the word about how important this work is. There's someone in all of your communities, I think, who would be passionate about this work. So it's really finding those people and encouraging them to apply and be a part of the program. On our side, we're trying to make more materials accessible to a broader community. We're actually bringing on a marketing person for the first time. We've never had marketing support. So we finally gained marketing support, and we're trying just to create a clear external message so that someone in your community can easily access a website where they can learn all about women tech makers. So that's what we're doing on our end, but I'd encourage you all to speak to people like Amal and figure out how to encourage people, how to get them confident in becoming community organizers and really leveraging this message. So, yeah.
I'd also turn this back to the community. So, and I'd like to ask the chapters that don't have a WTM lead, what's the reason behind it, and what are the challenges in attaining a WTM lead? Would be really helpful to know. So if anyone has something that they'd like to share, if you can just get up to a mic and share, that'd be great.
Thank you, Naveem. That's kind of like right. We can help fix that, I think. But so my second question is around just the different types of GDG groups. So I run a general GDG group. We have a cloud community in my group, and we have a cloud GDG in my community, as well as a newly formed Android group. And so our community is big enough to really have the space for all of these groups, and we're all in great collaboration with and communication with each other. But I think I'm just a little confused around the overall strategy because, for example, everything is cloud-based to some degree, right? You can't write anything without touching the cloud. And so while I appreciate the more specific branding around that for people looking to join those communities, I think that there's missed opportunities also by, for example, having specific cloud content that you're doing to reach out to cloud groups, but really there's I could host that, right? And so could other GDGs that are not cloud-based. And so I'm seeing that there's specific events that are coming down for cloud groups that really are not also they're not coming for the regular kind of good old-fashioned GDG original, And so I'm just wondering what's going on.
There should be nothing that we're making available to cloud communities that is not also available for the broader GDG audience.
Okay.
Back to the earlier question about what do I want to see different? It's exactly that. For some regions and some communities and some cities, it makes sense for there to be I don't want to call it a fragmentation, but a discrete split of hey, this is a community, then all we're going to talk about is DevOps related things, or all we're going to talk about is big data and sort of cloud topics. But to your point, that's exactly the story I've been trying to tell everybody is cloud is everywhere, and it is if we believe our own rhetoric, the future of computing, right? You cannot deploy a mobile front end without a cloud back end at this point in time. So I want to find ways to make sure that you are getting, that all the GDGs, whatever you're doing, whatever your primary focus is, have the ability to engage with that cloud content. And then back to this notion of working on external branding so that, GDG wherever, if they're servicing a cloud community or providing cloud content, whether it's a cloud study jam or just a speaker from the community, that gets made visible somehow. And we're working on changing some ways in which we sort of present and visualize our communities globally that should enable that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, so on your point, Naveem, inclusion and diversity has been my key goal with most of this for years now, but I'm struggling with this greatly. We've had 2 women who've kind of given interest in a women tech maker group. One was kind of intently interested, and then she wasn't a technology person, but was interested in the organization part of it. And then we have another who is expressed an interest, but getting them to actually move forward and do that has been a struggle. So if anyone has any suggestions for how you get people to make that leap, that'd be good.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I'd kind of turn to you all and the people who have been successful in that. But you mentioned the first person who wasn't necessarily technology focused but is a community organizer, I mean, that's completely fine, right? If they're passionate about diversity and inclusion and they want to be a part of that, yes, I would encourage them to apply. Yeah, just how do you get them? How do you encourage them? It's something that we're trying to figure out. Like I said, I don't know. Jen and Naveem might have more.
I also want to call out, like, you know, I know you mentioned, like, you know, diversity and inclusion is your thing. Like, I would encourage you, if you're not already, to apply to be a Women Tech Maker Ambassador as well, right? It's not like you have to find a woman to do that role, right?
That's I think it's like the women aspect of it, which is empowering and has a lot of positives to it, but that's kind of like, it also kind of excludes the other diversity cultures. It's like, how do you play that, you know, so.
And I think, like, you know, so with you know, the Women Tech Maker Ambassadors program, I know there's like a general focus right now on gender diversity, but really the brand is supposed to stand for, you know, diversity and inclusion of all kinds of people, right? So that's also something we want to just like kind of have the message resonate that, first of all, like, the D&I work is not for that one person in your community, right? It's a job for everyone. It's something that we should all be thinking about all the time as we design our events, as we think about, you know, communication, everything.
What's D&I?
Sorry, diversity and inclusion.
Okay,
So it's something that we should all be thinking about, right? And so I encourage you all to just take it with you as like one of the many things that you're thinking about, and try not to kind of say, oh, we have this person, they're gonna fix it for us, right? It's not gonna be solved that way. And then the second thing is, I know it's called Women Tech Maker Ambassadors, but the goal is really diversity and inclusion for all. So it does, and it has a connotation of being for women, but we want to make sure we're also thinking about everyone else, like everyone that could potentially be coming to this event. Like, are we being inclusive in the way we design our, you know, the way we approach our communication, the way we advertise our events, you know, the way the event is set up, all that kind of stuff. I just want to make sure we're kind of thinking a little bit more broadly.
And I'd love to see like an event, like a group session on this topic at some point. So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead. Hi, I'm Gil. I'm a fairly new GDG organizer, and so I have a few questions. For GDE qualifications, you guys don't really have qualifications on the website, so it's a little intimidating. Like, I'm not sure, like, I feel I may qualify for something, but it's pretty opaque. Like, web technologies, that covers, I mean, I've been working on the web for 20 years. Maybe I'm an expert, I have no idea. Or Firebase, for instance. Like, I feel I have Firebase web down pretty good, but I've never used Android or any of the other offerings in Firebase. So I was wondering, is there some place you can go to find the actual qualifications for being an expert?
So I would say I've gotten this question a lot in the past hour, and I've basically taken it on like a case-by-case basis. I would say as like an overarching theme is definitely don't think of it as if you are, let's say, a GCP expert, you have to be an expert in every single area of GCP. That's impossible. Right. There's like 60 different areas within just GCP.
Right.
So you don't have to be an expert in the entire stack or the entire platform. You can be an expert in several areas. You can also be, as I mentioned, an expert, you know, one area in cloud, one area in Android that you're passionate and know a lot about. And then at the same time, you can be very, very specialized. So basically, to kind of like encourage everybody, broaden your understanding and the way that you approach a product and your own expertise when you evaluate that. In terms of qualifications, there's not a resource right now that lists like very, very specific qualifications, and the reason for that is because it really is an individual case-by-case basis. So I think what's been really helpful from what I've seen, just speaking to potential candidates today, is just shoot me an email, or even like grab some time with me today or tomorrow and explain to me your situation, and I can give you more individual personalized guidance. But I think as a general, if I had to give you like high-level guide, think of it not just in terms of like being very knowledgeable in that developer area and having like certifications and more traditional training, but also think about the aspect of content creation, event management, community organization, all those other areas that could contribute to that specific product. So yes, expertise is required to be an expert, but there's also other elements that basically make it like a full package candidate.
Right. All right, great, thank you.
But yeah, specifically for you, let's find some time to chat.
All right, great, thank you. The next question is about the GDG Academy. You said it sounded like it was designed for new chapters. Are you not including new organizers, like of chapters that have, like, I'm a fairly new organizer for a chapter that's been around for a long time, so I wasn't sure, I wasn't clear.
It's a good question. We're clearly in the planning phases because you have me thinking. We were looking at it from a chapter perspective. The idea being that as new organizers come on, there is an organizer that's been doing this for a while that you can actually leverage as a resource. We also know that the mentor's there as well. That said, we can look at that as an opportunity. What I always have trouble with is co-organizers or so that get added. The way we get notified when someone gets added is always a little tricky, because on Meetup, the way it's done, and then how someone actually officially tells us versus just, hey, you're now a co-organizer. And so that's where it gets a little tricky, that if we wanted to do it in a scalable fashion, we need to have that information concrete in a way that we can actually rely and trust that we've actually got everyone. And so till that's in the place, I have trouble with that. But that said, I'm definitely open to that idea. And as we build this out, we can definitely do a quick scan and maybe just send a message to all GDGs, hey, these are the folks that are going to be participating in this. If there's others interested, and depending on the response type, we can look at that.
All right, great, thank you. And the last one is I just submitted a request for Cloud Next Extended, and I had a weird email exchange because we're doing it in two parts possibly, where we're talking about Cloud Next in one event, and then we were possibly having a study jam in a separate event that weekend. But I got back an email saying that because I didn't have a Cloud Study Jam scheduled, that, you know, they weren't sure what they were supposed to provide funding for. And I was like, well, I didn't realize Cloud Study Jams were required to get funding, because that wasn't clear from the actual, you know, the organizer's guide that went out. So I don't know. I figured since I was going to be here this weekend, I could just get it cleared up here anyway. So I didn't know if you guys, is a Cloud Study Jam required to run the extended events or not? Do you know?
No.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
No.
I think we all thought no, and we were just looking at each other.
Surprised by this, but yeah.
Okay, because I got an email that made it sound that, like, because I didn't have a
let's
study
follow
jam.
up offline and figure out what's going on.
All right, thank you.
So we're at less than 5 minutes, so just these last two questions, please. Go ahead.
So this is actually more of an answer than a question regarding all the WTM stuff. I actually co-founded GDG Cloud Pasadena January of this year. And even as a co-founder, I was like, oh, I don't really know if I'm qualified to do this. And thankfully, you know, the Google team and my co-founder were like, no, you need to do it. And the forum was like a little bit intimidating, and I was like, I mean, I guess I speak at our events. And I guess what I would say to that is, like, if there is a woman in your community, just encourage her to apply. Because I think from the women I've met today in this room, like, if you are a woman in tech, you experience it, and you probably care about it. And there is a section of the forum to describe, like, anything else they should know. And at least from what I've seen, like, sure, maybe you, I think, made an example of a woman who has less direct technical experience, but more event management experience. Like, to the points made earlier, just encourage people to do it and support them through the application process. Like, my co-founder helped me answer the questions because I felt really intimidated by the application form. And those are the types of things, like, hold someone's hand through the process if you think they could make a valuable contribution, because when you empower people, it gives them the power to make a difference.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
Perfect.
That's super. And yeah, just to add to that, so we redid the application form, but if you want to take a look at it and give us feedback on anything you think isn't clear or seems too intimidating, let us know, because we're definitely, it's our V1 of it. So let us know if you see the application, there's something, you see a red flag somewhere. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that.
And our last question.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, so I launched my chapter, Baltimore GDG Cloud, last year. So what I've experienced, and you know, part of the work that we're doing as evangelists and kind of getting the word out regarding Google Cloud. Clearly, quick labs are great, but you know, they're very confined and constrained in terms of what you can do. And of course, there's the GCP free tier, right? Which I've used in some of the meetups to demonstrate things. But once again, if I want to demonstrate something truly powerful in GCP, for example, spinning up a 100-node data pro cluster, for example, I'm going to go outside of the free tier. So would there be any consideration to us who are organizers to have some sort of credits available to demonstrate certain tools and capabilities in GCP?
I'm working on it. Yeah, I'm definitely working on that, for sure.
Thanks.
Well, thank you, all of you. Hopefully this was really useful to everyone and valuable kind of insight from the actual program leads. And we have a lot more still coming, so we're going to just move these chairs on and continue.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.